Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you my Diablo 4, this hardcore barbarian that I made. He's like a day old, so he's not like super strong, but he's pretty strong. I can showcase this, so it's not really like a build guide, but I'll go over like some of the concepts and what I'm using and how this all works. So this is basically just your very smooth spin to win whirlwind barbarian. You just kind of spin through the stuff and stuff dies. I have played a good amount of barbarian builds. There's a couple that I like. That have good legendary powers that synergize with it, so I just think they're actually like legitimately really strong. Will be really strong. But this was, not only do I think like probably the strongest, definitely doesn't do the most like raw damage. I think what I played was probably upheaval for that, but like quality of life, just being able to like right click, and then raw survivability because you have almost 100% uptime on all your shouts. And I mean, this is beta, so I'm sure that in the actual launch with better items and all that kind of stuff, you probably get even tankier and all that like, cooldown stuff, uptime of all your buffs and all that kind of good stuff. So very pleased that this build is actually really good, because barbarians have been kind of dog in D3. They're just like a support idiot, and then in D2 they're, you know, why they take way too much gear to make them good. So that being said, this does require a good amount of legendary powers, but I mean that's like the whole point of what we're playing, right? Trying to get the items to play the strong builds or whatever. So it's basically the barbarian running around. I'll kind of show you, I could finish this, but I'll kind of show you my gear setup type stuff and kind of why I think barbarian is probably the strongest class in D4, based off the information that I can see. He's definitely not the strongest with, you know, like like level 20 with no legendary powers, but as he gets more and more gear, he just exponentially starts becoming more and more powerful. And a lot of that does have to do with the fact that he gets to use 4 weapons. So legendary powers that I'm using here, and stuff like this, which is pretty generic. Core skills, dealing, you know, this isn't even a max roll. This affects the entire whirlwind channel, so get your you know, your max buff before you start whirlwinding, and then you hold down your whirlwind for the whole time, and you get the full buff through, you know, for your whole channeling duration. What else we got here? We got this. So this would be like, I wasn't even using it in the dungeon there, but for single target, it definitely helps. You just like frenzy 5 times, and then you'll get 50% more damage, which multiplies into this. So you're starting to get like just crazy more damage. There's probably something better here I could use, but like I said, this character is not like that min-maxed or whatever. So this is just more damage while you have a barrier, which I'm getting from, I think, yeah, this thing here. Kind of nice for, you know, your big mobs and stuff. So getting a lot of multiplying damage. This thing is kind of crazy. So this is like 80% flat crit, so you only need 20 more crit to cap. Well, I don't know what the base crit in this game is. It's probably like 5 or something like that, but I mean, even on this character right now, he's got a base crit of 13, so when I'm fully stacked from the channel, he's already at 93 crit, which is kind of crazy. So you can just really easily stack crit damage and get a lot of mileage out of that. These ring mods are just like out of control, and they're really good for a lot of different things you can play on the Barb. So like the amount of fury generation you get from this kind of stuff is like 4 per second, and each shout you can easily use like 3 shouts like I'm using here. Each one does give you 4 fury per second. So when you're using all 3, you're getting 4 fury per second, but you're actually getting more than that because, you know, Rallying Cry gives you a lot more fury generation over double, right? So there's that. This thing basically halves the cooldown of all your shouts. Get a little bit of CDR, have a little bit on my helmet, have a little bit on my amulet. I'm sure you can get way more than this than when the game actually comes out. And I'm like 75, 95% uptime on some of these shouts, which is kind of ridiculous. So you just have permanent, almost permanent uptime on all your shouts already, which is silly. Here's another damage multiplier. So 50% more damage to your whirlwind. So as you can imagine, as you get more and more gear on the barbarian, you know, this starts multiplying. This starts multiplying into this, which multiplies into this, which multiplies into this, which multiplies into this, and who knows what else exists in the game when the game comes out. So you end up with like 5 times, you know, 6, 7, 8 times damage of, you know, without having these items. It's probably actually more than even that. So gets kind of crazy if you're familiar with like Diablo 3 multipliers and all that kind of stuff. Like they're already here in this game, so you start stacking up, and like I said, who knows what else is in the game. This basically just gives you really nice movement speed, so that's where you're seeing a lot of that movement speed. But Barb also has a lot of like innate movement speed type stuff. You know, it's on the tree. It's built into a lot of the skills, built into the berserking buff. So yeah, like Wrath of the Berserker gives movement speed. Berserking gives movement speed. What else? Rallying Cry gives movement speed. Then you got stuff like this that gives movement speed. You just like you're zooming pretty fast. This character wasn't using like an actual mobility skill. Armor's good, right? We want some defensive stuff. This whirlwind pole is kind of nice quality of life, bring enemies to you. Clear was pretty consistent. I'm not sitting there like auto-attacking one mob at a time and then, you know, spending all my resource to hit like a mob over here and just like repeating like that kind of like miserable gameplay, I would say, like relative to, in comparison to this, right? Like I can just spin through everything and it dies. This is really nice because it just basically, you have so much fury generation that you're gonna have, you know, max fortify pretty much all the time. And then, like I said, some barrier juice. There are other powers that are in the game, even in the beta, that are really good. I didn't get everything that I wanted, so interesting with Whirlwind, it seems to snapshot. I don't know to what extent everything snapshots, but this definitely snapshots. Pretty sure attack speed snapshots. What that means is just when you start channeling Whirlwind, as soon as you click it, it will take the damage instances, your attack speed, and it will last the entire duration of your channel. As soon as you stop channeling it, it will, you know, reset. And if you start casting it again, it'll take your current stats. So it's like build up all your stuff, and then hold down Whirlwind, and you'll do some nice damage. Skills that I'm using on this right now. So like I said, with the snapshot stuff, I think this probably snapshots into Whirlwind. I'm not 100% sure. So it's like if I want single target damage, like, you know, some extra attack speed here. If I, you know, stack up my frenzy and then start spinning. You got your Whirlwind stuff here. Gives some fury generation, and then this gives you more damage while channeling, or after 2 seconds while channeling, so it's pretty nice. Here I'm just using some vulnerability debuff. Pretty nice to be applied through Whirlwind for like that single target damage. We got our shouts, +1 defensive skills. I believe I have that, which is really nice on the Barbarian, just from the amulet. But like I said, with the 100% uptime stuff from the, you know, you probably will have 100% uptime on your shouts, I imagine, on a higher level Barbarian. It's just like challenging shout is actually kind of out of control how strong this is. I think this goes up to like 75% at like, what, level 8, which is definitely doable. 75% damage reduction, just 100% uptime is kind of silly. But hey, Rallying Cry gives you Unstoppable. I'm also getting Unstoppable from Wrath of the Berserker, so you got 2 CC breaks if you really need them. And this thing is like, I don't even know, 12-second cooldown or something. 10-second cooldown with my shout stuff, so you can't even really be CC'd. All that extra fury generation from this. Warcry, damage, berserking, that kind of stuff. Pretty nice. You can also take this for fortified generation. Pretty good. Get some shout duration stuff. You could also get some of these other ones. Damage reduction. There's a lot of damage reduction on the Barbarian. And a lot of fortify buffing stuff all over the place. It's kind of crazy, right? You got like damage to elites, extra tanky stuff here. You got like these other challenging shout nodes. I don't have the points to invest in a lot of this stuff, but a lot of it is really good. Movement speed, quality of life type stuff. I'm actually using a sword because I wanted to test it, but I don't think you can slow bosses, so slow does count as a crowd control effect, so really easy to apply with a sword on a Barbarian because Barbarian's two-handed sword expertise applies a bleed anytime you hit, but it doesn't seem like the bleed scales with much. It wasn't doing that much damage, but it was applying the slow, but the slow doesn't work on bosses, it seems like, so I think I'd probably rather go with greens. and just like reliably apply vulnerabilities, because you know we want that boss damage, right? So that's why I was using a sword. I think an axe, any of the other choices are actually probably better if you build around it. But you know, I was experimenting, messing with stuff. I just took Wrath. You can take whatever. You can take Call the Ancients. You don't have to put any point here. One thing I was saying about the Barb's power creep is like this node here is actually just ridiculous, and we don't have it yet because we're not high enough level. But core skills deal 135% more damage, multiplicative with everything else, but your skills cost double Fury. That really isn't any problem with whirlwind. It's not any problem with upheaval either. A lot of the Barb skills, like as soon as you get this unlocked on the Barbarian, you get a lot of damage. Like you're going to be doing more than double damage, and who knows what else there is in the Paragon stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of damage in here too. That's probably multiplicative, but Barb gets kind of crazy, and a lot of that, like I said before, is coming from this weapon stuff. These powers are just, you know, like a non-Barb looks kind of like this, right? You can only use one weapon, and then you have to use all this other stuff to like try and get more damage. But the Barb, as long as there are powers, and there already are powers in the game that multiply your damage, you take this, right, which is double value, the power of using a two-hander versus like, you know, the one-hander. So it's like you do this, you multiply it into this, which is getting double buffed because it's also a two-hander, then you multiply it into that, and then you multiply it into that, and then all these stats. Let's look at the stats on this, right? Just the stats, like 18% more damage. I'm sure these numbers probably get way higher than this on like high level gear, right? Crit hit damage, all these stats, core skill damage, damage to CC'd enemies, all of that gets multiplied in damage to healthy enemies. All of this, all of these stats are factored in, being factored in, and it's just like Barb power creep just seems kind of ridiculous. And one, like I wanted to play the Sork also. It probably is still my second choice if I were to play it. But their legendaries didn't seem like they did hardly anything in comparison to the Barbarians. The Barbarians' legendaries that I have seen are pretty good. There's a lot of damage here. Like this on a max roll, I don't even have a max roll on this character. 240% more damage on your Whirlwind or your Upheaval or your Hammer of the Ancients, whatever you're playing, is like kind of ridiculous, right? So like the Barb looks absurd with gear. I feel like nothing even comes close, to be honest. They have so much defense built into the tree, just raw mitigation, you know, all this like challenging shout DR, all these like regular DR things in the tree, all the extra life. They even have like regen, sustain type stuff. Really easy to get your fortify. Barb, I don't know, I'm sold easy. It's not even a question. Like I could run Iron Skin instead of Wrath of Berserker if I want to be even tankier. It looks great. I'm pretty much sold on the Barb. So any Barb despair gamers, that like it looks absolutely insane once you start getting this gear. So there's a lot of Barb stuff that looks good. Like I said, Upheaval, Hoda looks good. There's legendaries for these items already. Lots of multipliers to make it start doing ridiculous damage. Whirlwind was really fun. I was pleasantly surprised to see how smooth that gameplay would be with all this kind of like, you know, these rings, the Fury generation, then just like the fact that it snapshots the damage. So pretty promising. So that's just kind of what I think about the Barb. My Barb experiences, played this character, did all the stuff on hardcore, didn't die, had to leave. I think I had to run away from one butcher. I just hit 25, so I had like no gear. But yeah, Barb will be pretty miserable until you start getting the items. It like a Sork is probably going to be like level 100, but by the time the Barb is like level 60 or something. I don't know how long it takes to actually level and like how much more difficult it is, but it's about getting the gear. Once the Barb has the gear, he is, I don't know, he just seems absolutely out of control versus the other classes. So yeah, that's the Barb stuff. So thanks for watching. If you want more videos like this, I might make some, but that is the Barb stuff. GG.